But I think I've covered in this deck. I'm going to share most of the stories that I saw come across the newswire. Once again, remember that I talk about stories that are in the news. Like that is what I use as a basis for putting these presentations together. You know, a lot of people say, why haven't you talked about this company or that company or something? If they don't have news, I don't have much to talk about. All right. So that's kind of the fundamental basis. But we did have a number of companies over the past couple of weeks that announced some news. And Altamira had some of the more interesting news that I think came across the newswire here recently. Now, you all recall that they drilled at Maria Bonita, which is part of this Cajueiro project or district that they're starting to uncover, we'll say, in Brazil. And it is really turning up some remarkable things. Now, the first, like people see this research and they think, oh my goodness, this is low grade. This is low grade. My goodness. It is low grade. Okay. But this is a giant porphyry type system. And what they're finding is that in this region and this property, and even probably over at Matom as well, there's a kind of a belt of porphyries that are all gold bearing that seem to just be giant clouds of low grade mineralization. And you might at first think, oh, this is nothing special. 24 million tons, 0.46 gram for 357,000 ounces indicated. And then in inferred, we have almost 26 million tons, 0.44 gram per ton gold for about 363,000 ounces inferred. This is actually quite interesting. What do we know about this project? Okay, first of all, we know porphyries can host a lot of tons. Okay, so I see this as really a starting point. I'll talk more about that later. Secondly, we know the metallurgy of this gold system is very, very favorable. The test work the company has done has shown that this gold literally comes out of the rock quite easily, either through gravity or through cyanide recovery. So this is like idyllically, metallurgically favorable gold mineralization. And because of that, it makes even low grades like this attractive. Now, I'm going to start with an interesting analogy first. Okay, so go to the next slide. And we're going to talk about a mine that is in Brazil. It's not right near this. I think Mato Grosso is where, so off to the northwest from Paracatu is where Altamira is located. But Paracatu is a mine that belongs to Kinross. I clipped this from this mining intelligence and news site. It's a really interesting site. If you haven't seen it, you should get on it because you can look up data on all sorts of mines and production and stats and stuff. And they are fairly accurate and they're fairly up to date too. You can see in this case, the numbers go up to 2024 and they show that the company basically mined a very, very large volume of 0.36 gram per ton rock gold ore. And this is a milling operation, by the way. This is not a heap leach. This is a milling operation, and this thing made good money. Okay, this is one of the lowest cost mines for Kinross. It ticks along year after year after year, performing exceptionally well. And it is a large volume. It's a large tonnage, but it has that kind of geologic endowment that this can be done. I think the mine generates over 500,000 ounces per year. Now, am I saying that what we have at Cajueiro is identical? No, it's actually geologically, it's a little bit different. But in the gross sense that it's a big tonnage and, potentially like metallurgically very favorable, I think these two are fairly, good analogs. Okay, let's go to the next slide. All right, so here's the details, a little bit of detail about the resource. You can see they have indicated, inferred. What is this saprolite fresh rock? Well, saprolite is basically the blanket of oxidized material, kind of weathered oxidized material that's right below grassroots. So right at surface, you usually have a blanket of rock that's been heavily leached. And that's typical in the tropics. It's just part of the way Mother Nature works. And you can see they have a considerable amount of saprolite, but they also have the fresh rock below. Both behave about the same metallurgically. In other words, the gold tends to come out quite freely in both styles of mineralization. But you can see how they've broken the resource down here, indicated again, 319 This is a 0.2 gram cutoff, by the way. 319.7 thousand ounces indicated and 353.6 thousand inferred. If you add those up, you get 720,000. 720,000 ounces, given how much drilling they've done here, which is really just, I think, a couple of dozen drill holes, to come up with that kind of an endowment is actually quite remarkable. Okay, big tonnage, low grade, but we're starting to see some ounces come into this picture, which I find encouraging. Go to the next slide. Here we see different cutoffs. So these are different cutoffs applied: 0.2, 0.3, 0.4 gram, and 0.5 gram. And you can see how the resource changes. To just pull your attention over to the far right there, you can see that the ounces decline, but not sharply. Okay, as you go from 0.2 to 0.3, yeah, we're seeing about 120,000 ounces reduced, but the overall grade is coming up quite a bit, 0.54, and then you can see the next step down. We're now taking that bigger haircut, like 160,000 ounces, and the grade does go up to 0.67. And in my book, that's, in this kind of environment, that's actually pretty high grade. Like that at this gold price and stuff, that is wildly encouraging. This is a good outcome, okay? But why? Let's go to the next slide and let's talk more about this project, okay? Now, first thing I want to do is remind everybody that they already had a resource here, okay? The main zone, the main part of Cajueiro, which is where they drilled really prior to Crescat's investment. They came up with a resource. You can see 161,000 ounces at a little over a gram per ton in indicated, and another 456,000 ounces at 1.29 gram per ton inferred, okay? And this resource was what the company had the day we showed up as investors. It was encouraging, but I was really intrigued with this Maria Bonita and other targets across the property. Okay, now I want to take, so we're talking additive here. We got the Maria Bonita resource, which was just announced. We have the main zone here, which was established a few years back. So now we're talking about 1.3, 1.4 million ounces, I think, if you combine the two. But that's not all. Let's go to the next slide and talk about what's really the upside here. Okay, this map, this image shows a lot of soil sampling and other data, including alluvial mining and stuff around the property, the Cajueiro property. And you can see right away that there are many, many targets that have yet to be tested. So the white kind of irregular polygon, a little bit right of center there, that is within that is where the main zone of mineralization, the Cajueiro mineral resource, was first announced. There's a lot more upside. I think a few weeks ago I talked about some results that they got from trenching and stuff there. They're already seeing great room for expansion around the existing resource. I think that's remarkable. You can see that there's gold anomalism over most of that footprint within that white polygon. That's encouraging. And then over here at Maria Bonita, which is more in the upper left, that's where the resource is that they just put out. And there's also upside there. In other words, that system appears to be open as well. Okay, but we have lots of other targets. All the little targets flagged with yellow flags are basically untested or relatively untested, certainly by drilling targets. And they're kind of sprinkled across the property here. This, the Maria Bonita and the main zone are not all that's here. This is going to be, in my opinion, a very, very large gold system. To give you a sense of how big, look at the scale bar down there at the bottom. That's 2 kilometers. That little black line is 2 kilometers. You're talking about a series of gold deposits that cover probably 15, 20 kilometers in strike from, say, west to east, and multiple targets that in aggregate you could pull together a significant tonnage. Maybe with persistent drilling and testing of these, maybe you could see that kind of Paracatu scale of tonnage and certainly grade here. So I'm very encouraged by this resource that they put out, and I think it's a good first step. But there's a lot more work that has to be done. And I do think that this will catch the attention of certain companies who are operating in Brazil. maybe even our friends there at Kinross. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, Goliath put out some news, very interesting news, really. They are engaging JDS Energy and Mining, which is a firm headquartered in Vancouver that specializes in mining projects, especially early stage projects. Underground mining is one of their specialties, and they can, to put it bluntly, get the job done. These are people that I know, through other engagements I've had with them. But I also know reputationally around the industry, they are known for getting tough jobs done. And in this case, they're looking to forge plans to drive an exploration adit at Sherbet. Okay, what does this mean? An adit is simply a mining term. It's a mining term that describes an opening that's put into a mountain that's horizontal, okay, or close to horizontal, we'll say. Shaft is vertical, adits are horizontal. Think of it like a horizontal shaft, all right? And this adit can be put into the mountain, but it gives you a lot of upside in terms of vantage to drill the thing. It also allows access to the mineralization itself. Like you can get in there and you can actually open up some faces of mineralization. You can bulk sample it, test it, things like this. But I think most importantly, this will allow a more prolonged drill season. In fact, maybe even a year-round ability to drill this project year-round, something like that. Okay, I think the drill platforms from underground could also provide for shorter drill holes and things like this. It will allow this load system, the sub-parallel or flat loads, to be drilled quite easily from underground. And in the long run, I think that's what you're going to need to develop a mine anyway. So this is almost, in a way, it's a first step towards making that commitment of a mine. I think this is a wonderful decision. I think it'll put the company in a really good position, especially because they can put this adit in where they see fit. And in particular, they're going to target that Bonanza zone where we know they had some really, really, really nice drill results last year. Go to the next slide, please. Here you can see the cross-sectional view of the Sherbet system. The different colors and wavy shapes that you see there are simply different mineralized zones. The original Sherbet is the yellow one that kind of crawls up to the upper right there at an outcrops actually at surface. That's where this whole thing was discovered. But then you have other lodes at depth here, like the purplish ones. That's the Bonanza lode, and that's towards the bottom. It's more flat in nature, okay? This is, I've talked about it in terms of Baklava. It's a stacked load system. These loads are a few meters thick, maybe 5 to 10 meters thick, and they're very continuous in nature. They're not, they don't appear to be just, random little quartz blowouts or things like this. They form nice, coherent sheet-like bodies of mineralization. But, this reminds me of the Pogo deposit. What I'm looking at here, if you said, oh, that's a cross-section of the Pogo deposit, I'd say, yeah, that looks about like it, okay? And we all know that the company has had some really nice drill results, okay? I can't apologize for the text being so small, but I think that 34 meter of an ounce is that one in the lower left there, that big, long purple stick that you see. That's about where they plan to put this adit in. Poke a adit straight into the hill there. Guess what? You can get to those. So go to the next image. And I simply took the liberty of drawing, an impression of what can be done, okay, from underground here. So the little red square, the kind of fat line red square, imagine that being your adit, and I don't know exactly where they're going to put it yet, but they haven't even actually designed the adit where it's going to go yet. But I'm just showing this as kind of a schematic way to convey the benefits of an adit. Okay, so you put an adit in, you can put crosscuts and drives, so you might have drives going either way. And from those, you can actually put drill stations in. You can put drill cuddies in where you can start drilling upwards. Okay, that's really intriguing. You can also drill downward too, to be frank. Okay, so there's that possibility too. And there are some hits down there too. But I'm thinking about the bonanza zone, the sherbet zone, things like that. What better way to test this thing than just poke holes one after another? Your holes are going to be way shorter than if you had to drill from way up on top of the mountain. You can put as many holes as you need to do all the infill that you need. Then you can move over to the next station, put a fan of holes in, next station, put a fan of holes in. This is the ideal way to drill this thing out, in my view. And again, quite frankly, once you have this access and you can drill at this density, you're putting yourself in a really, really good position to go ahead towards, making that step towards production and things like that. And in this image, yes, we can see the numbers better. So we have, like I said, that purple bar that's more towards the left of center. That's 34.52 gram per ton gold equivalent over 39 meters. I said it wrong earlier. So 39 meters of a little over an ounce gold equivalent per ton. Over here, more towards the right of center, you got a couple of intercepts highlighted. You got 11.6 gram per ton gold equivalent over 27 meters. That does include a higher grade section. There is, within that, there's about a 34 gram per ton over 9 meters. And then you also have right next to that, you have 15.86 grams over 11.9 meters. Other intervals are noted. Some of the flags are off of this image because I just kind of cut and pasted the little close-up view here. But you can see what I mean. I mean, this is a really robust load system where there's a potential for a very robust, high-grade deposit right in the vicinity of where they're going to put this adit. And the quicker they get this thing going, the quicker they drill it off, they understand this thing. Maybe they come up with a couple million tons, just in the area that we can see, something like that. I can't promise anything. It's just spitballing it, but I think they will be in a much better position to move this project forward with this adit in place. It is not to say that they're not going to drill this summer. They already have the drill program laid out. They've got the drill contracts laid out, and they're going to come in here and drill this summer. This will probably take a couple of years to actually get in place. So maybe 2026 sometime, but it's the right step. All right, go to the next slide. All right, Magotes. I've been waiting for more news out of the company because I know that they concluded the summer program a few weeks ago. I mean, it's basically the beginning of, or it's early winter, I should say, down there now. This is what the equivalent of November, I guess it is, up here in the northern hemisphere, right? So it is getting cold down there. Their ability to work going through the winter months is zero. Okay, but they did a lot of work over the past few months, and the data is now starting to come back. And I think the work they're doing, which is really geared towards defining drill targets, high confidence drill targets, I think is absolutely critical. And in this news release, which is really going to be one of many, they have a whole series of news releases from different areas across the property. I think this one is quite intriguing because it is mainly in the area that's immediately south of Los Filo. Like, it's basically just across the border from Filo, which is now BHP and Lundin. Okay, so this is basically in the area that you see the natural extension of that mineral system. And what do they see? They see this Meseta project, including on the ground that they recently consolidated. They see this Meseta target really taking shape, which is the extension of Aurora and the footprint of that. You also have this newly identified Los Mogotes Valley floor copper porphyry high sulfidation target. Talk more about that. Basically, down lower in the valley floors off the tops of the mountains, they found the expression of a porphyry now. And they have it's a really robust target. Like, it's a big area. It's 650 by 500 meters. And then they have this Cuenca vein swarm, which is more of the epithermal part of a system. It's a sheeted quartz vein system, but it also has a very big footprint, 500 by 750 meters. And it has really good gold, silver, and pathfinder elements. All right, so let's talk about these a little bit more. They always have really good images. Go to the next slide. They have good illustrative images, what they're talking about in their news releases. I think this is very, very helpful. Okay, so the first thing I'd point out, the blue outline you see at the bottom, that's Magote's property. And to the north of that is Lundin and BHP, so that's Filo del Sol to the north. The big green blob right in the center there that's kind of trending southward onto to Magote's ground, that is the Aurora system. And interestingly, I should have put a slide together, but I noticed that Lundin and BHP announced a resource here recently, and it was a whopper. It was a monstrous resource, very good grades, both copper and gold, and a few other metals, silver, and so forth. But it, I think, puts it certainly into the top 10 copper gold resources in the world. All right, so the area that's in this news release, addressed in this news release, is this Los Magotes target cluster, which is immediately south and on strike from the Aurora system. So it's just into the Magotes ground in the north area. It's that one with the red circle. All right, go to the next slide. All right, these images are all expressing different data sets. In particular, we got copper rock chips over here on the far left. Then we have gold rock chips in the upper right and silver rock chips in the lower right. The values are all tabulated over there on the column on the right-hand side. But it shows you right away that the Meseta target, which does have a really good expression in alteration and stuff, is what appears to be the natural extension of Aurora onto the property. What I'm really, really interested in, though, I think more so, is the Los Magotes, what they say is a valley target. So basically, it's an area where there's been erosion and it's exposed a deeper level, but target right there in the green. That looks really robust. So they got some really nice copper values at surface. I'll show some rock pictures here in a minute. And that looks like it could be its own unique porphyry system in its own right. Okay, even off to the northeast there is, and that's in the valley too, there's another little green circle with some nice copper samples. I think they're down into the juicy part, the very tippy top of a porphyry system there. And I think that is a walk-up drill target. In this Cuenca project, the high sulfidation epithermal style is in the yellow there on the right-hand side of that left image. Okay, not so much copper, but look at the gold and silver values. You jump over and look at the right. Oh, wow. Yeah, there's pretty good gold values and silver values. All right, go to the next slide. These images are basically reflecting geologic mapping as well as alteration mapping or terraspec alteration imaging. This is further solidifying these targets. Like, you can see the expression of these things geophysically, geologically, right there in the Los Magotes target, this eroded porphyry. They have found what appears to be a plume of hematite alteration at the cap of this, probably lithocap. And by gummy, if there ain't a porphyry under there, there's something wrong with Mother Nature. That looks like pretty much a walk-up drill target to me. But anyway, the alteration also confirms it over here on the right-hand side. You can see there's more advanced styles of alteration, alunite and stuff, right there in that green circle. And then, over here, this Cuenca target, you darn well see all the bells and whistles you would expect in a high sulfidation system, is alteration there as well. All right, so juicy targets, guys. These are juicy targets, and bless their heart for doing all this work, because this is what companies need to do. They need to do the hard work in the field and define targets like this before just going out and swinging a drill around, which is what a lot of companies do. These guys do it right. All right, go to the next slide. One of the things they've done in this news release is they've actually provided an illustrative model of the porphyry high sulfidation system, okay? And they're kind of telling you where they are in the system, which is really helpful. It's almost like a roadmap of where they think they are in terms of erosion and where they are in terms of the hydrothermal system. I think this image, if you sit and study it, and I don't want to go through it, take 20 minutes here, but the takeaways are this. I mean, 6 is that porphyry target. Okay, that Mogotes, Los Mogotes porphyry kind of smells like it's, especially where the creeks have eroded down, smells like they're down right at the tippy top of that thing. That's really encouraging. Okay, but they also have the high sulfidation targets as well, which, like 2 and 4 there, which, could in their own right be good targets, albeit probably for precious metal. Okay, I want to see that number 6 payoff. I think that one could be a brand new porphyry in its own right. I think that's, if I had to put money, that's where I get excited. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, and these are all photographs. In that previous image, there are little camera symbols, and they actually show you images of what they're seeing in the field from various locations. What are we looking at here? Well, look, the photo number A1, that's from Mesito West, and basically it's hydrothermal breccia with intense quartz alunite alteration. It's basically a high-level expression of that porphyry. It's probably the aurora porphyry projecting onto this property. Okay, and the same can be said on the east side. So photo A2, which is kind of the top center there, that also shows quartz alunite alteration. So basically, on either side of the Mesita area, you are at a high level within the porphyry. Interestingly, there are fragments in that second photograph of highly altered fragments of porphyry. So those chunks that they're outlining there are basically pieces of porphyry that have been flushed up from below and then subsequently altered themselves by the near surface epithermal type alteration. Okay, so that's really interesting. Is a good proof there's a porphyry at depth there. And then we have the like photos C and D, and I think even let's see, that's Cuenca. Okay, so C and D are from the Los Mogotes target, and look at there in D, copper in outcrop. Yeah, it's supergene. It's all, it's oxidized. It's probably mobilized copper. But that tells you right now, they are in a copper system. There's copper to be found on this property. The photo in C shows you breccias that are probably coming off, but they're likely more proximal to a porphyry, like they kind of have that flavor to them. And then over here, this Cuenca is clearly a piece of what appears to be maybe, I don't know, almost looks like porphyry mineralization, stockwork mineralization that's been caught up and brought up into the near surface environment. So very encouraging geology, strong targets now. They're going to have lots more. Let's be patient. Let's see what they come up with. I'm very excited about the Los Mogotes target in particular. Let's go to the next slide. Irving put out news recently, I think it was about a week ago, about finding shallow high grade or shallow gold rich silica at Omui, which is part of the Omu project. Okay, so this is up in Hokkaido. Omui is a mining license, really important. That means the ability to go mining is actually expedited in a situation like this. And we do have, and by the way, I'm a director, we do have the relation with JX Mining to go in and develop a smelter flux mine here. So this is an important step. This is really the first hole that we drilled into this. Go to the next slide. In plan view, here's a stats for the hole. The entire length was mineralized. Okay, it was 101 meters, and it came out 1.14 gram per ton gold. There's also appreciable silver, nearly 16 grams per ton silver. That translates to a 1.34 gram per ton gold equivalent. If you want to play with math there, we're talking like 135 gram meter gold. That, in my book, is a good hole. Now, what's really important is it has about 84% silica. It's not quite up to the level that you need for a smelter, like to mine it and directly, feed it into a smelter. But don't forget, we have the Omu Sinter down the hill from here, which is also a target. And that material could likely be blended with this and resulting in a targeted silica content of 90+%. That would be ideal for a smelter. Okay, so we've basically, through this drilling, we found a very large volume of higher grade gold silica that we could blend with our sinter and make a product. Okay, so we're really intrigued by this. Go to the next slide. This is simply a plan view of the drilling to date at Omui. This is on that mining license. You can see some scratching there. There's historic mining. We also did some trenching, what you're seeing. And the hole that we just completed, very interesting. It's towards the center of the image, a little bit below center. It was a very low angle, flat hole, which the Japanese have the right rigs to drill, which is really interesting. Not too many times have I seen at surface, shallowly drilled holes, but this one did the job, and it really tells us a lot. Why do I say that? Go to the next slide. Okay, the hole that was completed, 24 OMI 001B, is up there towards the top to the left, all right? And notice that that entire hole from top to bottom was mineralized, but there's nothing really immediately around it, okay? There are some other holes that we drilled, over the past few years off to the right there, which is to the north, but there's a large volume near surface where I think there could be nice silica, easy dig silica, say, that has appreciable grades of gold that could be used for the smelter flex concept that we've been pursuing. All right, go to the next slide. Now, before we leave Irving, there was a mention of the drilling at Yamagano, in fact, East Yamagano. So this is down in Kyushu Island, which is polar opposite end of Japan. It's really like Hokkaido. Omu is way up the north end, and this project way at the south end of Japan. But we're drilling and we're trying to find that next, we'll call it Hishikari type discovery, epithermal vein discovery. And we've done this geophysics with the help of Newmont. This is AMT data, so it's basically looking at resistivity. The redder areas, red and oranges, are patches of resistive rock. Electrically resistive rock means that electricity cannot pass through it so easily. And then the blues and greens around that are more conductive. Okay, they're less resistive, i.e. more conductive rocks, where electricity is more freely able to pass through. Why do we look at this? Well, silica is a big part of epithermal systems. And silica tends, once it kind of comes up and floods the rock that it has access to, it tends to make that rock more resistant. And what we kind of interpret as geologists here is that the reddish and orange areas are basically areas that have been flooded with silica, like hydrothermal fluids at some point that brought along silica. Now, the fluids can also bring along gold. Okay, so you're trying to find the big volume of silicified rock, and within that, you're trying to find the veins that we'll say brought the fluids up, the fractures that brought the fluids up. Okay, so the red stars there highlight a number of the veins or structures we hit. Now, we did see a lot of alteration and long strings of low-grade mineralization in a recent hole called 24SY002. But you can see it glances along the margin of that resistive feature. Okay, so we didn't really nail anything high grade. We simply skittered down along the margin of that and didn't hit uber high grades. Okay, the hole 23SY001 goes across the feature, and that was drilled the year prior. We did cross a vein just inside of the resistive feature, and we hit about about a meter, I think, a meter or two of 46 grams, and it was within a broader zone, I think about 5 or 6 meters of about 9.6 grams. I can't quite read the numbers there, but something like that. But there are veins, so we know there's veins inside that envelope of red and orange. Should we test a little bit lower? Probably. We should probably come at it again and drill across that, but at a deeper level. All right, so that's our conclusion here. Let's go to the next slide. Nova, I'm a director here as well, and they are now gearing up to do work, in particular drilling at John Bull. The goal of the work so far has been to to basically identify the best drill targets we can, in particular the higher grade areas. The way we see John Bull is it has a chemistry and it kind of has that flavor of being a reduced intrusive type target, so something akin to what you see in the Yukon. And our team has done a pretty good job of finding some nice high grade in this central John Bull area. All right, so we are now, I'll say, more confident we know where the center of gravity is in terms of grade. Go to the next slide. Okay, you can see here that the yellow polygons that are shown in the background over the geology are really reflecting the geochemical anomalism. And they tend to follow that area of folding. The colored units in the background, those are geologic formations of various types. And the gold seems to follow that folding, that pattern of folding to a large degree. Now we have a number of targets here. This is a big property. There's about 2 kilometers from north to south that we have strong geochemical anomaly. But in this John Bull main, which is in the center of that left-hand image, if we blow it up, we can see that in that area, guess what? We actually see a very high vein density. We also see monzodiorite, so we actually see the intrusive down in that neighborhood. But we see high grades, okay? We do see some very high grades of gold. And I think this is very encouraging because right now there's basically very limited drilling in this area. I think we're going to stumble into something here. I think we've found a nice target that's basically going to generate perhaps, well, who knows, maybe a valley type discovery or something like this. Okay, go to the next slide. All right, RAK.V announced they've got the permits for drilling. This is their RAD project, which is over in the Northwest Territories, but it is kind of the easternmost extremity of the Yukon, the Tintina Tombstone Belt. This is a really interesting target. Okay, this is a reduced intrusive type target. It's sticking out of the ground. They found it late last year. They did some channel sampling and they got some really nice results. I would say of all the targets this company has tried to test here in the past year or two, this one looks most compelling. And I think the market appreciates that and really feels that it has the potential to be one of those valley type discoveries. You know, is it guaranteed? No, nothing's guaranteed in life, but go to the next slide. Let's look at what they have here. This is an outcropping granite intrusion. You can see the Hornfels alteration, which is kind of brighter red color of rock blanketing the intrusion, kind of encircling it. And last year at the discovery zone there, they actually found, I can't read the numbers at all, but I think it was 100 and some odd meters of 1.5 gram or something like that. Can't read it at all. Sorry. But you know, this is outcrop. It is sheeted quartz veining in a reduced intrusion. It was kind of difficult to skitter up the talus slopes there and get that sample, but they have a nice channel that was taken across that with good results. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, let's hope when they get up there on top of the ridge and they can poke some holes, drill holes down across that we see similar results and that we see a similar volume of rock up here of this reduced intrusive that is mineralized like this. And maybe we have the next valley discovery. Now, I think that's my last slide, but I got to address something because while I'm making this, or after I submitted this for review, I realized that Sitka had just put out their news about their most recent drill hole that they got some assays. I don't have the images, so apologies for that, but I can at least address it verbally here. Sitka was drilling up at the Blackjack target. They've defined a fairly discrete higher grade gold body of gold mineralization that has an apparent southeast plunge, and they had some really nice results on this up to date. They have long intervals. Like I think the last hole 76 was around 3 grams or so, and it was over 100 meters. In this case, this hole, I think it was 77. Sorry, I don't have my notes. It hit the west margin of the gold zone. It did have a nice run, about 25 meters of 5 grams or something thereabouts, but it was kind of skittering down the western margin of the gold zone. And everybody who's watching the story, oh my gosh, they missed. Oh, it doesn't look like what it should look. No, it just means they probably have to drill a little bit more to the east, in my view. Okay, I think the target is still there. It's well defined. They're going to come at it with some more drill holes. If anything, it tells us there's a very discrete, fairly well-defined body of mineralization that's running 3, 4, 5 grams in the root zone of the blackjack area. It's still wide open down plunge. I mean, this thing could be quite big, and as you know, I think it could open up even at depth. It appears to be opening up now. It's actually getting fatter as you go deeper. So is this hole the end of the world? No. If anything, those who were hoping for 300 meters or whatever, 5 grams or something, they exit. Okay. Other investors who can appreciate what they've actually hit in this drill hole, they step in and they benefit because the company's on the right track. In my view, they have it. Yeah, that drill hole is just telling us they're along the margin of the gold system. Okay, nothing to worry about.